Hi, this is Dr. Pajari for another episode of the Prognosis podcast, and this episode is entitled The Indispensable CNA. There are critical areas of medicine that we don't think about as much. We think about the treatment plan, we may think about the operation that is coming up. We think about maybe how much medications cost or where we get our medications from, where we get our supplies from. But we more easily forget about or underestimate how much it takes to provide round-the-clock hands-on care, especially at the end of life when we're not talking about healing from an illness, but working with an illness in its manifestation of decline to make sure a patient retains dignity and quality. Today in this episode, we will discuss why the CNA, Certified Nursing Assistant, is one of the most important, if not the most important individuals you'll want to know when caring longer term for a loved one. My guests today are, and starting on my right, are Philomena Quarshie. She has a Bachelor of Social Work, a Master of Health Science Administration. She's originally from Liberia. She's been 19 years in the healthcare industry, and she currently runs her own agency called Professional and Quality Home Care, which the website for that is pqhomehealthcare.com. Welcome.
Welcome. Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. On my left is Natasha George. She has been the lead CNA at a memory care unit and previously was the owner of a family daycare with the state of Georgia for 10 years and currently is a CNA for hospice. She's also the mother of 2 girls. Welcome, Natasha.
It's a pleasure being here.
Thank you also. And last but not least, we have Kimmarie Goburn Scarlett. She's originally from Jamaica. She moved to Georgia 4 years ago. She started working 15 years ago as a medical assistant. Later on, she got certified as a phlebotomy technician. She started out as a caregiver in 2011 and has been doing caregiving ever since on a part-time basis. She got her certification last year. Welcome.
Thank you.
So just to start off the questions, I'm going to throw out this question. Anyone can answer, or maybe I'll just ask someone specifically. But do you all feel that medicine has a good understanding of what a CNA is? Kimmarie, do you want to start? I could tell you were starting to say maybe.
No, I don't.
Yeah, tell me why.
I think when you think about it, in medicine, when you think about a CNA, they think you're just there for ADLs. You know, a CNA is there for much more than that. We give support. We're basically a psychologist, psychiatrist.
Mm-hmm.
You know, we're just much more than that. I don't know if anybody else wants to emphasize that. I can't really tell you, but we are more important than just caregivers.
Go ahead. Talk to me about, because I think the perception in medicine, realistically, is that it's an afterthought. And that's why I wanted to have this conversation today. This is actually the crux of end-of-life care. Natasha, I know you're thinking things too there. So,
well, to piggyback off of Kim, we're teachers. We're friends, because you develop a friendship with families. And when it comes to the patient themselves, we're angels.
Mm-hmm.
Why do you say that?
I get teary-eyed. Oh, God. I'm sorry.
Already?
Yeah,
yes,
that's
because
right.
I'm thinking of the patients and how they respond to us.
Yeah.
You know, they would say things like, if I had a lot of money, I would buy you a house. You know, God bless you. And sometimes they can't even speak, but the way they hold you or how their eyes light up.
Twinkle when they see you.
Yeah, and the way they greet you when you come to do, care. You know.
Talk to me a little bit. We're going to come back to that because that's a crucial point. Talk to me a little bit about what a CNA is. I think education needs to be given. I agree with you. You know, most people don't know what this is. So what is your description of a CNA? What does a CNA do? Walk me through a little bit of that so we give education to people who are watching.
I think the bottom line of a CNA, to put it in its simplest form, we help you with anything physical concerning your body. We will clean you. We will hold your hand if that's what you want. We will do things that family members feel
they're not able to.
They're not able to do it.
they're not able, they can't do it, they don't know how to do it.
Which are sometimes simple things that they can do.
For example,
I mean,
Lifting someone up.
yeah,
Lifting someone up.
giving them a bath, a shower. I think sometimes the patient would rather have their family do these things, but they embrace us because they realize that when we come in and do these things, we do these things
Out of love.
out of love. It's not just a job. Because being a CNA, I don't think we're paid enough at all.
That's another story.
No, it is this. It is the story because we're not paid enough for what we do. But you have to have this compassion inside of you. You have to love what you do to be a CNA. Because if it's for the money, you would never do it.
You would not touch it.
You would not touch it.
Which is
It's
absolutely
not about
correct.
the money. You have to have this compassion. You have to be a caring person. You have to love people. You have to care, especially care.
That compassion.
Because what you see sometimes and what you have to do sometimes, if you don't have that within you, you cannot do it.
You won't do it.
what things do you all see where you think? You were just thinking of examples there, Kim.
We've seen abuse. We've seen neglect.
Financial abuse.
Financial abuse. And most of all, since I've been doing caregiving, I've seen physical abuse. I've seen a lot of neglect. I've seen simple emotional abuse. I've seen things that the family member could have easily taken care of. Sometimes I feel like, why am I here? This is a job for your daughter. You've taken care of that person all your life. This is a job for them. I know you look in that patient's eyes and they'll rather have their family do it. But just because they know that, they're not going to get it the way they want it. And
they won't get it out of love. They will get it because I'm obligated to doing it.
Exactly. Yeah.
And I would like to say there's also dark sides to this job. You see things that you never expected
Prepared to be.
to see. I would like to say one little thing about that is I saw something that made me question if this is what I really want to do. And it stuck with me.
Really?
Every day.
Yeah.
Did you want to talk about that?
Oh, yeah, I would
Natasha?
love to share this one.
Yeah.
In general, we love our family members. We love our mom. We love our dad. We love our uncle, whoever it may be we're caring for. But what I've seen is that love, when you have to care for someone who's not there mentally, physically, and who's more of a burden than anything, that love turns to a nuisance. You're tired, you're fed up. It's better that they're not there anymore for them and for me. They don't say it, but you could see everything about them saying it. And one day I would leave a patient and I would come back after the weekend and that patient's no longer there. Why they're not there? Because someone in their mind is saying, you know what? We need to make her more comfortable. In other words, they're ready for them to go. And it's not bad people. It's regular people like us. We don't know what we're going to feel till we're in that position. And when that loved one can't communicate and show you what they used to show you before, you kind of get detached. So I look at my daughters and I say, Lord have mercy, what you going to do to me? Who is going to pull the plug on me? And this is real. And it made me question.
I've been thinking about that a lot recently. I mean, I have 3 children. My oldest is 26, my second is 18, and my last is 8. And I've been thinking about that. Like when I get to that point in life, what's gonna happen to me? Am I gonna be able to trust them with the decision that they're gonna do what's best for me? I'm really scared about that.
Terrified.
I'm terrified about that.
Yeah.
That's you know, that is an incredible point that you all made. So being a CNA, you're witness to things. I think that's why I was trying to illustrate the importance of a CNA. You're trying to illustrate that you have a window into family dynamics that virtually no one else has. And these are sordid dynamics. These are not easy dynamics. These are actually dynamics that make you want to sometimes run away. And they're very painful. And then they bring up questions about, for us also, the future for ourselves.
Yeah.
You know, how are we going to
Of course.
be taken care of? And that's a very fundamental question. That's actually pretty powerful. You were talking about compassion, all of you, because you said you wouldn't be able to do this if you didn't have a draw for it. How did each one of you come to this place where this became something that you were so passionate about? Because actually, right out of the gate, the passion showed. So go ahead, tell me each one. I'd like to hear how you came to the place of being a CNA and being so passionate. Philomena, did you want to speak to that point first? Well, I'd like to hear all viewpoints.
Well, for me, I'm going to share personal stories.
Okay.
I became a teen mother at 19. My mother, she was like, go to school, go to college, do something. But she enrolled me in a CNA program. Took the program, not to know that I was going to be a caregiver to my mother 4 years later. Yeah. Let me get a tissue. At 23, I became a primary caregiver to my mother and 5 siblings. She passed away September 2003. 6 months later, I went through the same thing with my kid's father. So I went from having 2 kids at 23 to having 5 in the house. So that took on a lot of stress and burden on me. So becoming a caregiver at such a young age, I learned to appreciate the love, the support that was being given to me. So therefore, whenever I do this job, I don't do it for money. I do it because no one else is going to do it for them and care for these patients the way how we care for them. So compassion comes with that.
That's the angelic.
Yeah.
That's the angelic part. I was wondering what you all meant. I had a sense. I think that's the angelic part. Kim, go ahead. Where does that compassion, or how did that drive you?
I have a story too, maybe a little bit longer. Well, I grew up with grandparents. My parents were off doing whatever, but I grew up with grandparents, and I had a grandfather that was needing care a lot of times, and he would come to me for some reason, and I don't know why. It was 3 siblings, and he was always asking me to do things. I knew I was compassionate, and I loved taking care of people. When I had a neighbor that had Alzheimer's, and if that's correct, and every day before I went to school, I was going to high school. Every day before I went to school, I used to go to her house, give her a bath, feed her.
How old were you when you did that?
I was around 14, 15.
Wow.
Yes. She totally did not want to have anything to do with her husband, and for some reason got attached to me. So whatever he wanted her to do, he would call me, and I would come get her. She used to elope and go all the way down to the street. I would be the only one that could come and get her back. So I knew that I liked taking care of people. You know, I just cared, period. And my grandmother passed away in 2016. She was a citizen of the U.S. She went home. She decided to go home when she got really sick.
Back to Jamaica?
Yes. And she was there. She had a caregiver. And, you know, it hurt my heart so much that I couldn't be there to take care of her. And I don't think her caregiver took care of her the way
you would have.
I would have. And I think it's not because she didn't care, it because she wasn't educated correctly about how to really take care of her. Because I don't think they have CNAs out there, I'm not sure. And I vowed that, I'm going to get into this. And that love and that care that I could have given my grandmother, I'm going to pour that into somebody else. So that's my story.
That's beautiful. Mm-hmm. That's really beautiful.
Mm-hmm.
Natasha?
Well, when I was younger, I wanted to be a social worker. And that would have been wonderful if I used to do everything like you're supposed to do, which I didn't. So I was kind of like a rebel growing up.
I was just going to say a rebel.
I was a rebel. If you say left, I'm going right. So, but that led to having a daughter at 21. Didn't finish high school at that point. So wanted to go back to school, realized when I went to the daycare across the street, I couldn't find anyone in the daycare. So I was doing this. And I'm like, there's no one here. And the baby was sitting on the high chair screaming. I said, nope, Tasha's not doing that to her daughter. So I raised her and I didn't go back to school. So that continued for a while. And I always had a passion for business, runs in my blood, my family. So my dream was to open up a daycare. I think that made a big impression on me. I said, I want to open up a daycare. Let them come here, let them feel safe. They're not going to scream with me. And I did, eventually. And after that daycare in Georgia, I wanted to do something different because that kept me inside. But that was my passion, my daycare. And I didn't know what to do. If I went to do like a 9 to 5, I get depressed. I'm like, is this what it is? Is this what life is? Every single day I'm doing the same thing. I got depressed and I started thinking crazy things. I said, this is not it. And someone said, Tash, you don't have a spark anymore. And they were right. They said, you're depressed. I was like, are you crazy? But I was depressed. Then I realized I love children and I love the elderly because they're very similar. Mm-hmm. There was a home down the street and I went. No education concerning elderly. And eventually, after 1 year, I was lead of the whole unit of 16 patients. Wow. I was lead over CNAs with no education, and that was a problem and I could understand why. And I said, you know what, Tash, you can't be telling CNAs what to do or how to do with nothing to back you up. So I got the CNA, and then I realized, well, I don't want to do this anymore because I like the people who come in and leave. I don't want to sit here. And when they came in and left, I was like, that's what I want to do. I want to in and out, take care of who I have to do and leave. And I went straight to hospice.
Had the flexibility also.
Yes.
Talk to me a little bit. You both said education. You were talking about that. You said there's caregiving around the world, but people don't necessarily have that background, that structure. Mm-hmm. How important was that portion of it? You went through the education part of it. Did that really help frame what being a CNA was for you?
Or getting the certification?
Getting the certification,
no,
or not really?
No, because I was doing that and more before. I knew what I was supposed to be doing before being certified as a CNA. When I got to the class, I'm not showing off, but I was valedictorian. Got 100 in all my tests, and they were like, "Oh, this."
Well,
everybody was like,
because things come from experience. Mm-hmm. So once you've been out doing things and you come back and you take an exam, then from practical experience. I didn't mean to cut you off. But I thought,
No, that's fine. And it's also common sense. Yeah. It's a lot of common sense. So if you don't have that, then don't even bother. It's a lot of common sense.
I think the classes, what it did was give you little more tips than what you knew before. You have to have this in you, period, to be there. Once it's in you, it's common sense, because if this is my loved one and she's laying there, I'm not going to pull her arm to get her up because I don't want to rip her arm off because I love her and she's going to say ouch. So I'm going to go as close as possible to her and I'm going to hug her and gently lift her. So it's a lot of compassion. If it's not in you, forget it. If you're like, come on, grandma, forget it. That's not for you.
What about you, Philomena, for the education part of it? What did you think? Did you think that added or didn't add too much? I'm just curious about that.
The education part added more for me because I went through a technical school to obtain my CNA. So I went through like the basic anatomy, physiology, had to go through like CNA, not the CNA, but CPR class, medical terminology and stuff like that.
Oh, that's pretty comprehensive.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Did you feel that that helped you?
It helped me a lot.
A lot. You know,
Yes.
I know this is maybe the very sensitive subject, but did you feel with your mom, did that give you a lot of insight about caring for your mom?
it did.
Did you feel how, that was almost a blessing in disguise
It
to
was a
be able
blessing.
to help her that way?
Yes.
Yeah.
I was able to administer her medication, do her wound care dressings. Even now with my patients that I have, I wound care dress for them.
Yeah. I wanted to talk about the idea that this was a calling. I wrote some questions down, and I didn't think, when I wrote it down, I felt it is a calling. Now hearing you all speak, where does a calling come from? This is something where you said you have to have it in you. Where, for all of you, does this come from? I know you talked a little bit about the background stories, but where does that kind of compassion and caring originate from? Do you have any
My grandmother.
thoughts? Do you think it's something given to you, or do you think it's something in you?
My grandmother too.
Yeah.
I think it's
grandmother.
deeper.
Go ahead, Natasha.
I think we have to go way back, way back. Kind of touchy, but it goes way back, because when you look at the percentage of CNAs, what color are they? They're black. They're Spanish, They're probably from a European country, maybe Yugoslavia or, places like that. Why is that?
Talk to me about why you think that is and what your thoughts are on that.
Like I said, I think it's inside of us. It's part of our DNA for caring. We were slaves. We did a lot of caring for each other. We did a lot of caring for master and family. So we have it in us. And I mean, we can ignore it and say it's not real, but it's in us. When you look at the facilities, how many black people, Asian people, Indian people do you see in them? That's a nice question.
Yeah, we do.
And that's another thing.
That's a nice question.
Great point that you
Yeah.
pulled out, because
True.
a lot
Yeah.
of foreigners, we don't place our loved one in facilities.
Yeah.
We care for them.
We care for them at home until they transitioned on to the next phase.
And it's not, we're just saying it. Proven fact. Hit every facility you see.
Because we're taught to do
Take
that.
care at home.
We're taught to take care of our parents. We're taught to, make sure that they're okay. They're not going there to any facilities or stuff like that. We're taught that way.
Is that expectation, Natasha? I'm hearing what you're saying about that. That's actually, I like hearing different things and that cause you to think, these things are things that quietly we notice and are not necessarily spoken about openly. And I think they're very important to speak about openly and address. Bringing up the caring for loved ones at home, that can be an incredibly difficult thing to navigate. How do you navigate, or maybe I'm trying to think of the right way to pose the question. Sometimes the care can be overwhelming in those situations. Is there any guilt?
No. For me, it's not. Because right now my grandmother is on hospice.
Right.
And caring for her, it comes natural. Because guess what? She took care of me. She raised me. If it wasn't for her being in America, I wouldn't be here.
It's like a cycle.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you elaborate on the guilt? What do you mean exactly?
Well, I think I've seen families where they struggle with, I can't manage this level of care. What am I going to do? We see people really burned out, like you said at the beginning, really, really at a bad place, mentally, physically, whether it be a long duration of dementia or an ALS. And,
I understand.
So I think they may have some guilt thinking about how
they're
do
gonna do
I
it.
cope with this? How do I get away for an hour? We've heard that before. I can't get away for an hour or 2 hours just to go and get some shopping done. So I
But
was
you have to
thinking,
build that support system with your family members. You have to build your support system with outside resources. You cannot keep your mouth closed. You cannot keep your hands closed and don't ask for help. most people are stuck in situations like that because they are too prideful to ask for help.
It might also come from what you were talking about, the idea of family and the notion of building a family. You were talking about that, saying, you know, are my 3 kids going to be okay with taking care of me later? These things that, if they're willing to do that, maybe originate in the early interactions between the parents and the kids, right? A little bit?
Not really.
You
I don't agree.
think so?
I don't agree.
I don't agree.
I don't agree because I've seen where parents have done the world for their child, and when it's time for them, they're just disposable.
Where does that come from, you think?
It has to come from
Yeah.
the individual. You have to be selfless. And again, compassionate. You have to have a conscience.
That comes again from what we do. We say if it's a calling, you have to be a certain type of person.
Can people be, you were saying it's in the DNA, can people be brought or educated on that kind of compassion? Or is that just something that is? You're saying no.
No.
I say yes and I say no.
Oh.
And the reason being is this.
Anyone can read a book.
Anyone
and
can
you
read
can
a
learn
book,
it.
but if you
but
show
it
them,
has to be
you have
in
to
you.
show a person how to do certain things for them to be able to step into that route. Because you have some people who family may like to say, you're a doctor. You being a doctor, you know how to administer medications. You know how to do certain tests. But when it comes down to doing one-on-one care with a loved one, you're going to question, do I have that skill to go ahead and do so? I've come across doctors who have family members living in the home, and they have no idea on how to care for that family member.
A doctor, listen, a doctor, you went through a lot of education to be where you're at today. But when it comes to being in touch with the person, their soul, their thoughts, their feelings, their everyday emotions, you're not the one I'm going to talk to. I'm going to look for that CNA. And I know in certain countries, the doctor don't ask for the nurse. They call for the CNAs. They're observed as higher position than the nurses, mind you, not higher money. But how could you compare your education to a football player? They're getting millions and millions. Do you think their job is more important than yours?
Yeah, no, I think that those are, I mean, you know, when it comes to salaries, the things that are supposed to be paid well are not valued.
Humans they're not doing good
because they have one thing in their mind when they think CNAs. Oh, they come to just clean,
wipe my butt,
and wipe my butt for lack of a better.
It's more to it than that.
Term, but that's what they do. Change diapers, and they just wash you. That doesn't take anything with brains, you know. And that's how you're viewed.
I think that's what it is. You have to actually, you know, that's why we're having the discussion today. It's for an educational push saying, this is the calling. This has a lot more meaning to it. The people who come into this profession actually come by way of not just a few years of exposure to something, probably personal stories, maybe even genetic legacy or histories, cultural histories, and things like that. So you come into this almost, and it's almost, is it almost a spiritual aspect?
It is too. It is too, because I'm a God person. And I like to pray about stuff. And, you know, I talk to Natasha a lot about stuff, and she'll tell you I'll pray about it. If I have a day, I said, I'm just going to pray about it. And just let God do work. And like I said, conscience, you have to have a conscience. When you're doing something for a patient, you have to think, listen, would I want that for me?
Or for my family members?
I can't just walk away and ignore that patient is wet.